Hello and welcome to the LCS report. This time with the actual LCS report hosts, both of us. So welcome back, Marn. We definitely missed you. I was able to say so many egregious things while you weren't here, so I got away with a lot of stuff. But I'm sure people are happy to have you back. Let's just get right into the games, and then maybe towards the end we can talk about how your vacation was. Because we had some unexpected results today. I'll give you that much. KT versus CFO was not it did not go the way we expected. It was a 3-0. It was a stomp for most of the time. And like KT showed up in a way that we haven't seen this form from KT. Just so you remember, KT almost lost to Mad Lions Koi in the first game of Worlds. They were like crumbling. They were down so much gold the first 25 minutes until MKoi threw. And for them to come and to show up against a really good team in CFO and really find their weaknesses and prey on the lack of experience that Honkyu has and just put him in the dirt to come up against probably one of the best junglers in the world. Sorry, not probably. Definitely one of the best junglers in the world in Junjia. Like this guy's a world champion. He was a sub when he won, but again, he was there. He got the experience, right? You can't deny that. And for them to make him look like a silver, like this was such a slacking. Doggo tried his best. They played very well around the aggression of CFO. They had a very good strategy coming in. The champions that they picked were always like skirmish heavy that could win these skirmishes and not necessarily the best team fight champions. I thought their drafts were good. I thought their gameplay was good. I thought their strategy on who to target, when to target, what lanes to play around. I loved all of it. They came in very, very well prepared. And honestly, it makes it very exciting to see the rematch between Genji and KT because if you remember in the first round of playoffs, what happened between KT and Genji? KT beat Genji. But let me get before we keep going. Let me get your thoughts. Oh, Marn, people can't hear you. I think. Let me see on my end as
Okay.
well.
For some reason, my microphone reset, so like it wasn't on OBS.
Oh, okay.
Damn. Okay. I just thought that like very quick on top. I was really surprised about it being a trio because CFO have shown this Worlds that they are a very good team, and like you said, Jinja's one of the best like junglers at this tournament. He's consistently been like a phenomenal player, and he's always like carried the burden for whatever LCP team he's been on, whether that's PSG now CFO. So yeah, I think the one thing that also annoys me is people are kind of throwing that like discrediting stuff at KT because they haven't faced like a super big Eastern team yet. But I think that's just doing discredit to CFO because they they've also been a very good team, and people were predicting they could easily have taken this series, and they got smashed.
Yeah, I think the just to reiterate a little bit, like I think you mentioned, but didn't hear. Their road wasn't exactly difficult, but they also did beat pretty handedly a top esports. It's like when the pressure was on, they showed up, and that was one of the things that I wasn't entirely sure if they could do it because in LCK playoffs they were the underdog. In even up against top esports, I think most people expected top esports to win, and now
Yeah,
they were supposed to be the favorites. They are the Korean LCK team that's supposed to make it to semis. They got a non LCK LPL team. They should win. And now you're in Shanghai in this huge stadium with like thousands of fans all cheering for CFO, and like they played as if there was no pressure on their backs. They played really well, and I was really happy to see like the performance from Perfect, from Peter, from basically everybody. Obviously, BDD kind of like absolutely just showing why he's one of the best mid laners in the world. Um, and Hankyu is like a rookie, and Hankyu his rookie flaws showed. He wasn't able to like stabilize. He wasn't able to stop dying over and over again. Like they preyed on him, and that's like the level of meticulousy you need to be a top team. And like I was saying, it makes this semifinals matchup a lot more exciting. I think if even if KT won and it was sloppy, we would be like, oh well, we're not too excited. But the fact that there's a history behind this matchup just this year, all of that sort of culminates in this could be a banger semifinals, no?
Could be. Um, Especially because Genji, if they was offered KT as their semi-finals opponent, like at the start of the tournament, they would have snapped their hands even though they lost to them in LCK, because you went on to see what KT did after that in the next two series, and it wasn't really anything to write home about. So I think it's going to be a fun series either way. Um, like I'm so happy for BDD, a guy who's not had stellar teams at the moment. Like, and even for in this KTRC, like, ooh, like it's just another. I always like linked it to Keen because I felt like for the longest time this guy just like shot himself in the foot by staying on Afrika for 10 billion years and having like and like playing in like bottom tier rosters. But now, like, he's finally showing that. Well, continuing to show that he is a world class mid laner.
Yeah, no, he has been showing that he's just like kind of elo held, kind of like Keen back on Afrika. Although Keen did have a couple good rosters, but yeah, in general he was elo held, and BDD was, and Perfect went from being this top laner that plays lane really really well. Actually, there was a quote I think it was with, let me think. It was either FOMOS or eFocus Esports. One, I think it was a Korean outlet, and they asked about who, like anyone that's impressed Buppo, and Buppo said like Perfect's laning is perfect. He plays like, I want to commend him because the way he plays is not like a rookie. He plays so well, and if he keeps going up, this is how you become a Keen, a Zayu, Sabin. Like he's on that trajectory, which is high praise. Now it's coming from Buppo, who's someone that hasn't really matched to these players, but still like he's a professional player. And so like even in LCK, Perfect's laning was good. It's just he was someone that would get lost in the big team fights. Think of Thanatos last year, where he would often like get these huge laning leads, but then he would not know what to do or when to TP or when to team fight or how to flank, or he would just drop waves in the mid to late game. And these players who like in Team Liquid and FlyQuest, who might not be as good in laning, could out macro the person, get leads, and end up like overtaking them. Perfect was not the greatest when it came to macro, and like he's really come into his own the past 2 months in LCK playoffs and now in at world stage. He's really been showing up, and it's, we were just talking about how Honky was a rookie and how like his flaws were showing. Perfect's flaws aren't showing. He's really holding up quite well. I think the coaching staff is doing a great job. I mean, score was historic. Like KT, the last time they made it to quarterfinals, it went to 5. Actually, it's not the last time because they played against JDG last time. But the time before that was in 2018, where they made it to quarterfinals. They played IG, and that was Score who lost in that 3-2 game. And for him to be here now on KT as a coach and bring this team to the semifinals and potentially the finals, that must mean a lot for someone who spent his entire time on that organization. So there's a lot of history, there's a lot of accolades that go into like, it is historic. And I saw people like the cast was like, this is the first time KT has ever done. It's like, who cares, right? It's not like that significant. It's like, no, Score from 2018 is still on there. You know, this is almost like a fulfillment of his legacy. He is the person, like you said, who was the coach when they beat Gen G in 5 in LCK playoffs. Obviously, it wasn't the finals; it was the first round. They ended up losing to them in the second round. But you would be damned if you don't think that there's a possibility that this team could show up when it really matters. Now, I'm not saying
Absolutely.
Gen G aren't favored, but we can get to that later. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it is wild to say that this iteration of KT has done their best international performance. It has sparked like a lot of debate on should Swiss be seeded, and should there be best of ones, and like the, for example, 100 Thieves got 4 behemoths in their thing, and KT, their hardest opponent really was like a top esports who no one was really sure on, even though they were 2-0 themselves. I like either way, like you can only beat who's in front of you, and they've been crushing everyone that's been in front of them. Minus MCoy, but we can forget about that first game. It was game one, cheers.
Yeah, and actually, like the interesting thing about 100 Thieves is the one team that they beat in BLG did not make it out. Every single team that beat 100 Thieves has made it out so far. So also there was this quote from Ducknam where he said, "I want to get like in preparation to facing Jinji, I want to get his revenge, the revenge for Peanuts tears." And so like, dude, the storylines are there. The storylines are definitely there. Now again, we can talk about like the actual matchup later. But I thought that this was a really good performance from KT. And just to talk about CFO, for the first time in 10 years, an LMS team, I know they're technically LCP, an LMS team makes it out of groups, makes it to the top 8 for the first time in 10 years. It really feels like the LMS has had a team that could go toe to toe with these big behemoths. Last year there was a little bit with PSG. Don't get me wrong, especially at MSI, they did go 5 against, they did beat FlyQuest and then go 5 against BLG, but they didn't take those games. And even this year, CFO didn't win that series against T1 at MSI, but they finally did it here on this stage, and that is something to like really hold on to, because this is sort of like the rise and the ups and downs of teams. Like North America, we had two very very strong worlds in 2023 and 2024. We made it to the quarterfinals and we kept improving, and even at MSI we kept improving. But like obviously we're on a downtrend now. And when you look at the LCP region in general, when you look at CFO and what they've done over the past year, they PSG made it to MSI semis, not semis. They took 5 against BLG, and then at Worlds they had a very bad performance. Then you go to first stand, and guess what? They beat an A. They beat North America, and they almost beat EU. They were one game away from making it to finals. And again, it was just a almost kind of thing. And then you go into MSI, and they almost beat T1. And again, they don't do it. And now for them to actually do it, this gives vigor and energy to this roster, to the region, to everybody around them, the casters, the fans, everything. It's really delightful to see. It reminds me of 2023 when we finally made it out of Swiss, when we beat G2, how much energy and vigor and it restored in North America. And it's nice to see it happen to other regions. Obviously, it sucks that it's not happening in North America, but it's something that we need to celebrate. The fact that Junji is getting his flowers after all these years, the fact that players like Doggo go from running it down in LPL to literally running LPL carries down and killing them in game. It really is a treat to see like these this roster. I know Chowie said in an interview that like we'll try our best to keep this roster because there's something special about this roster. They're all very good friends. Maybe they end up pulling a FlyQuest and it crashes and burns. Maybe they don't. Maybe they end up pulling a T1 and this roster does great. So I just want to give them their flowers, even though they got outclassed today by KT, and they did try to go down fighting. It's not like they didn't, which I respect. You go down fighting. You don't go down and crumble, right? But at the end of the day, they were outclassed by KT, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. They got this far, and they should be proud. And I'm excited to see what they have in store next year.
Absolutely, and like, I think that's the thing. Is important is they had that consistency throughout the year. Like they were consistently a team that could do damage, and even if they didn't at some points, and like even in this series where they didn't lay a finger on KT, like the achievements are still significant because that's what you were getting from previous Flash Wolves rosters. At least at MSI at Worlds, they never really performed in the best of ones, like in group stages. But at least at MSI, they were always consistently a top 4 team, like when they would show up. And I think CFO they're just continuing that trend. These like the LMS have always had that consistent. I call them like an annoying team because they can easily just defeat the West and then they give headaches to the East. Like that's how I like kind of put them. Like they're not upper echelon, but then they're not the lower either. They're just kind of in that sweet spot. And I think like quarters is honestly like a good, in my opinion, a good ceiling for them.
Yeah, I think they're going to be kicking themselves because they definitely could have won this series, but Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, they got outclassed. This was probably the best draw they could have gotten, right? They could have gotten AL, but they got KT. So they got a draw that was reasonable. And at the end of the day, all these teams at Worlds were strong. So you're not gonna get a weak team, right?
No, exactly.
That's just not how it works. Yeah. Moving on to Top Esports versus G2 tomorrow. Um,
Mm.
I'll let you go first on this one because I have some thoughts.
The thing is that with G2 is you have stuff ongoing on like on the Rift and off the Rift. Like on the Rift, people are now starting to turn towards can this actually happen for G2, and off the Rift, they're looking at what's their roster gonna look like for next year because Inspired they immediately when FlyQuest were eliminated dropped that Inspired like created tweet where he apparently well, not apparently but like they made up like an Inspired DM saying do you guys need a jungler. I don't know if you caught that. Like,
I
so
saw.
I'm curious how that would affect things. Like, at least I would be for Schemon. I'd be pretty pissed with G2 for that because, like, why are you even flirting with the idea when like, I'm making freaking quarterfinals with you, and like, there's a legitimate chance we can make semis. Like, depending on how like top esports do.
Yeah. I think for G2, they would have had a better chance against KT. And let me explain. I know KT beat Top Esports, and Top Esports haven't looked the greatest. But the one thing that Top Esports has had this entire time is really good early games. They are very good at getting leads. Kanavi is like one of the best junglers when it comes to the early game. I think he's gotten every single first blood in every single game he's played, something crazy like that. This guy's legitimately good at the early game. And that puts G2 on a very difficult position because G2's strengths are not the early game. It's the other way around. G2, like their mid to late game is where they've sort of were able to shine. They were able to get these picks, these compositions to play creatively so that when they get to the mid to late game, they can win these team fights, they can win these macro decisions, these Baron dances, these Dragon Elder flips. Like that's where you want to see G2 playing around. You don't. This isn't G2 of old, where Hansama's going to pick Draven like Doggo and just like completely dog the enemy bot lane and like dive them over and over. This isn't that G2. This is a G2 that's more well rounded, but their weakness is the early game, and they got matched up against the best early game team at Worlds.
Yeah.
It's really hard for me to see an angle for G2 to beat Top Esports when you're down 3,000 gold going into Third Dragon, when you're down multiple like summoners going into every engage because they're just like putting so much pressure on you. It seems difficult for me to envision. Now, G2 are a very creative team. They could pull out picks that you don't expect. They could pull out different like fight angles that you don't really see. I just can't see that because one, much you're not going to get much leeway in the top lane matchup with 369. Kanavi is going to murder Skewmon, right? You have Cream, who hopefully Caps can best Cream in like lane. It's lanes aren't too much. Like, where is G2 going to find their advantage or some stabilizing force? The only thing you can pray is that Jackie Love runs it down mid, right?
Yep.
Because like he gets caught, but even then, I don't think it's enough for G2. And I don't know. Maybe I'm just a doomer. Maybe I'm just a hater. Like G2 did beat FlyQuest, but even then, I don't think it was G2 showing us something special. I thought it was FlyQuest kind of crumbling and running it down. Um,
And the thing is,
there was a bit of like G2 playing better than last year, that's for sure.
yeah, the thing is
Around
like
size.
and I was just like briefly looking at stats before, like, this stream, and like G2 has the worst early game of any team left in the tournament. And the problem is when you're consistently down like well over 1,000 gold in each game, you're putting yourself at a right disadvantage. And like their only hope is they have they have been pretty solid at objective control, at least around dragons. Like they have like a pretty high dragon percentage. So that's where you're going to be looking to probably exploit top, try and get like catch out Jackie Love because he has been on occasion caught out like a few times this world. But like I they have a chance, but they have to be that they all have to be on the ball that on this in this series. Otherwise, I think it's going to be another 3-0.
Yeah, I mean, I know Labrov and Skumand have proved themselves, but at the end of the day, like I legitimately think if they had Yike and Mickey, I would be a lot more confident because they have, like, especially Mickey has that X factor that he can find angles, he can find engages, he can find certain things that will give them advantages and will stabilize the game. And I just don't think they have that it factor. They just don't have that magic anymore. They don't have that G2 magic.
No,
And it's scary. I'm going to predict Top Esports 3-0 because I just don't see how they win those games.
I'm gonna say 3-1.
BB carry us to the promised land. I mean, Broken Blade's gonna have to play Gwen, Mbessa, and freaking Jax on like 1v9 if he wants to do that. But I don't know. I cannot let EU fans have happiness I desire. Aw.
Oh, as NA fans, we don't have much happiness either, to be fair. I'm gonna go.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go 3-1.
okay.
3-1 Top Esports.
3-1 Top Esports. Look, I would be pleasantly surprised with the G2 upset. Don't get me wrong. Like, I just think they matched up with a team that's like going to exploit their weaknesses. Kind of like how KT exploited CFO's weaknesses. I think Top Esports is going to come and just exploit all the weaknesses that G2 have, and it's going to be very difficult for them to play the game the way they want to play it because they're always on the back foot.
I think they'll get their bullshit Nivea Poppy comp. I think that's where the win will come.
Interesting. Maybe. If the Anivia 0 and 7, I don't see how they're gonna win. But we'll see. You know, like if Kanavi just plays Trundle and then Anivia's like, oh, my ulti doesn't do anything because he has a pillar, and like, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully it's a much more competitive matchup. I want to see a 5-game series. Like we've seen a 3-1 and a 3-0. I'm hoping for some 5-game series, but I think this is not the 5-game series that we're gonna get.
Definitely
if I'm being
not the
honest.
5-game series.
Yeah. Also, yeah, an LPL team to semifinals would be nice. Let's go to the last topic. BLG drama. Oh boy. It's only been a few days and already BLG are making headlights. This is a bit of a more serious topic, but the TLDR is there are these karaoke bars that you can go to in China and Korea and like a bunch of countries where there's service involved. So it's not just like you go down, you start singing. There are these girls that come and they serve you, and in certain specific spots, it's known that the girls don't just serve you your alcohol or flirt with you. They do a little bit more, and it's a very predatory industry on the young girls that end up working there. It's something that's known. So it's not like a, oh my god, really? I had no idea kind of thing. It's more of like, yeah, we kind of knew this was the issue. And there were leaked pictures. So in general, phones aren't allowed in these places for obvious reasons. But apparently one of the customers was there and took pictures. I don't know if it was a customer, an employee, a worker, who knows, but someone was there and they took pictures of some of the BLG members and named 4 BLG members in specific. I think Shadow, On, Bin, and I can't remember the Elk as well. So they named them specifically. They had pictures, I think, of people that looked. There was someone who you couldn't really tell if it was Beishwan or not, or like their manager as well, the BLG manager. And the other thing that the pictures clearly showed was that they were gambling. And if you don't know, gambling is illegal in China. You can't just go around playing these games, right? There are very, very strict rules. So not only were they being entertained in ways that aren't legal, they were also playing games that were illegal. And I think Knight was named as well, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was Knight.
I thought Knight was the only person excluded from the list.
No, you're right. Knight was the only person excluded, and it was like I think Knight actually was on stream with Wayward at that time, so it was like, okay, clearly Knight wasn't there. I think you're right. Now BLG members ended up coming up with their excuses, which some of the excuses were a little funny. Bin had double eyelid surgery that he was doing, so he couldn't have been there. And it wasn't even Bin that said it; it was one of his like childhood friends. I think Shadow was like, oh, I couldn't have been there. I've been playing Pokemon in my room for the past 3 days. Look at my Switch log. And it's like, yeah, he's played. And then On had like, he's been sick. And so he showed like a CVS or like a, not CVS, but like a pharmacy receipt to show that he was He was there, Pokemon. I know, right? Obviously, it's become a meme in on Twitter and pretty much everywhere. It's like, oh yeah, I couldn't have been doing that, Your Honor. I was playing Pokemon. It's like, um, but obviously, this is a very very disturbing news because look, we know that this has happened. We know that like if you knew the number of Korean and Chinese players that do this kind of things, it would be a very unfortunate statistic. We knew that they did this, but it is a sad thing when you finally like figure out. You can always have that hope that like yes, there are pro players that do it. Don't get me wrong, right? There are people that do it. These places exist. We understand that, but you also hope that as you interact with the community in a way that most people don't. When you're a professional player, you are in the spotlight. You know that you are like fan favorites. There, you have a community around you that you don't do this kind of thing, right? Not even because of the optics, but just because of like how bad it is, right? Just as a person, you would hope that as you interact more with society, you get a little bit more aware of these things. And it's really sad to see them go as a team and do these like gamble and do these kind of things. And it really does hurt because BLG is one of the biggest teams and that has a lot of fans. And it sucks that they're the ones that got caught, but like not necessarily because they got caught, right? It's not the issue that they got caught. The issue is this is widespread, and you could be the beacon that says, "Hey, we are the best team in the LPL, and we're not going to do it." Right? We don't approve of this kind of thing. There are so many other things you can do. You don't have to do this. You don't have to prey on the same people that cheer for you day in and day out, and they don't, and it sucks. And I can see why a lot of like the fans are just like we don't want to be fans for BLG anymore. We put so much time and effort into this team, into loving the players, into translating so many things into English, and then they do this kind of stuff, and it's disturbing. It really is.
Like you're really insulting the intelligence of your fans by like you could clearly see that they all had stories prepared in the event that they got caught. Like it's obvious that like I'm not here to accuse them of doing it multiple times, but it's clearly when you have that much like plan put into it, you've clearly like it's a good sign that you've probably done this more than once. And like you said, so many players probably do this in the LPL and like LCK, so it's not nothing new. And like you have a responsibility as professionals to inspire a younger generation to not only just be like good professionals but be like good human beings. And these services, they're becoming more and more like banned across the world, and like so many places in the United States it's banned, in the UK it's banned for the most part, or like it's starting to become like less and less frequent. So like the problem is like you're not only doing a disservice to yourself and potentially your career, depending on how it goes, especially like, if the gambling thing comes out, because you saw how that wrecked Bo's career. Like it, with the was it match fixing stuff that Bo went was
Yeah, it was
partaking in?
match fixing and
Right,
LDL. Yeah,
and like he was one of the upcoming. He's going to be he potentially going to be one of the best junglers in the world. Like he was really, really like touted as that next big guy, and like his career fell off like a cliff, like because of these like off the rift like adventures that he's been doing. So it's just disappointing to see when it's like you're like you said the best, or meant to be the best LPL team, and you find out immediately after the World Championship run ends, they're off doing things like look, people have you can have a private life and like, but the problem is you're not setting the best example for many new a new generation of players that are going to be coming through and then seeing, oh well, if the best players in the world are doing this, then maybe I should be doing this, when that's not the correct approach at all.
the other thing is like the number of times drama happens where like people are exposed for treating women or doing specific things that are like just straight up inhumane, and they're exposed. And you think the pro players would like look at this and be like, oh, maybe that's a bad thing. It really just seems like, oh, I just have to not get caught, right? And like to your point about them having excuse ready, I don't think they did. Like the excuses were so bad that it's like they were clearly scrambling, right? I think if they did have excuses pre-planned, they would be better than, oh, I was playing Pokemon for the past 3 days.
Some of them seem so niche though that like a doctor's appointment, like double eyelid surgery, like like, how would you even come up with that on the spot?
That wasn't even Bin. It was his friend who came up with
That's
that.
what I mean. Like, I can only think that that was premeditated. Like that you have something in place in the event you get caught. Because
I don't think so. Like,
maybe they're just
chances
that
are they've been
stupid.
there once. They've been there. Yeah.
That's what I mean. It's just a mess.
Yeah. And you'd think that, like, again, it's common, it's part of the culture, and you'd hope that there is some way to like break that, right? Because just the idea of like, oh, you just don't get caught, it's fine to do it. You would hope that when there's outrage and outcry, it's not, oh, he got caught. It's an actually bad thing. So please stop it. And it's unfortunate it just doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I have to say on that specific topic.
Yeah, I think there's nothing really like else to add on that.
All right. I think that's it for today. Tomorrow, obviously, we have G2 TES, and then we have the day after a very excited matchup. So I'm looking forward to the next couple of days. And then semis is right after. So we have no break between quarters and semis. That's going to be exciting. Lots of games to talk about, lots of matchups, lots of upsets. ALT1 is going to be exciting. If G2 does beat Top Esports, that's going to be exciting. Just overall, a lot of exciting League of Legends. So we'll see you guys tomorrow after the games.